Whether you're a hardcore coaster enthusiast or just someone who likes thrills, chances are if you're watching this video, you know that some of us like to count our coaster credits. We do this for multiple reasons, such as for bragging rights, keeping track of milestones, the sense of accomplishment from seeing the number grow, or if you just like knowing what you have and haven't ridden. I've seen some discourse in the past about whether certain rides count as credits or not, so I thought it would be fun to make a video giving my opinion on the topic. So come along with me as I try to answer the question, what counts as a coaster credit? Just as a note, what I say in this video is not the law, so if you count some things as credits that I don't, that's perfectly fine. Leave a comment telling me where you disagree. In general, if you want to know what counts as a credit, the Roller Coaster Database, or RCDB, is the best place to go to figure that out. They essentially list every ride that contains what is considered a roller coaster segment, so while there is no definitive right answer to the question, RCDB probably has the most right of anything. Make sure to go check it out if you haven't already. I'll put a link in the description. A quick Google search tells me that a roller coaster is defined as an amusement park attraction that consists of a light railroad track with many tight turns and steep slopes on which people ride in small, fast, open cars. One thing this definition leaves out that most would agree on is that roller coasters are notable for relying on gravity to take the train throughout the layout. There will of course be another method to get the train its initial momentum, whether that's a launch or a lift hill, but in general all the work is done by gravity. This eliminates rides that are powered throughout the entire ride. A good example of this is the Seuss Trolley Train ride at Universal's Islands of Adventure in Orlando. At first glance, this may look like a roller coaster, but the entire track is powered and does not utilize gravity at all. As a result, this does not count as a roller coaster. Another side of the coin to this is a ride like Blazing Fury at Dollywood. A good bit of that ride is powered, but it does run on what looks like roller coaster track and has a few different drops that utilize gravity inside, as well as having a magnetic brake system like those found on most roller coasters. For that, I personally do count this one as a credit because of the distinct coaster elements and systems that it has. One thing I think many would disagree with me on is that I typically don't count water rides as credits, even if they have a coaster-like drop. I've seen some log flumes that enthusiasts count as credits because it has a drop or two that's on a track. I don't like counting these since they're mainly not meant to be coasters, and it also just isn't something I would rank among the coasters that I have ridden. The same goes for something like Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld Orlando. It has that big roller coaster-like drop at the end, leading it to be considered a credit by many, while even though I've ridden it, I personally don't count it. Something more debatable would be Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld San Diego, since that actually has an entire coaster section to it. I'm still not 100% sure if I count it or not, but there is definitely a good argument for it. At the end of the day, though, I think we could get super technical about it all, but most of these I'd be willing to bet weren't built with the intention of it being a roller coaster, and that's the biggest reason I choose not to count them. Moving away from the more technical side of this, there are some other things that are even more opinion-based and just depend on how each person likes to count credits. We all know that there are many cloned coasters out there: Vekoma Boomerangs, Vekoma SLCs, the B&M Batman clones, S&S Free Spins, and more. I can see the argument that since these offer essentially identical ride experiences, that you would only count them as one collective credit. I count each clone as its own credit because at the end of the day, they are each in their own distinct coasters in different locations and often run differently from one another. I've ridden like 5 or 6 of the Batman clones in the US, and some of them run much better than others. But again, at the end of the day, they are each their own coaster, even if the layouts are the same, so I believe that each one counts as a separate credit. Next we'll talk about dueling coasters. When it comes to these, I personally like counting them as 2 credits, assuming I got to ride both sides. The way I see it, as long as each side is its own distinct track, then it's kind of a different roller coaster. Examples of this would be something like Racer at Kings Island, Lightning Racer at Hershey Park, or Gemini at Cedar Point. They each require you to get in line twice if you want to ride both sides of the track, and oftentimes the 2 sides will run at least a little bit differently. Not all dueling coasters would count this way, however. If a coaster duels but the track is a Möbius loop, this would only count as 1 credit, as it's just one long track arranged to look like 2. You can find 2 coasters that are laid out like this at Six Flags Magic Mountain, in West Coast Racers and Twisted Colossus. On both of these, you get to ride both sides of the dueling track in one continuous loop before you return to the station, and are thus only 1 credit apiece. I've heard the opinion that a dueling coaster should only count as 2 if you would actually rank the 2 sides separately. This could be rides like the defunct Dueling Dragons at Islands of Adventure or the new YOY at Wallaby Holland. They both have separate sides which have distinctly different layouts that should definitely be ranked separately from one another. I think this is a perfectly valid way to think about it, but I think as long as there are two distinct tracks, that each one should count as a credit, since it is technically two different roller coasters. Some roller coasters will undergo a major facelift during their lifetime. They might get elements removed or changed, get a new type of train, or have the ride experience altered altogether. When it comes to a changing of elements, such as the removal of Son of Beast loop, Drakenfire's corkscrew, or the time the Dododompa had its top hat replaced with a vertical loop, I don't believe these are new credits, as it's still the same coaster with just a small part changed. One element may differ, but the rest of the ride is still the same as the original, so the change isn't big enough to warrant it being a new credit. Rarely, you might see the entire experience of a roller coaster change, like with Top Thrill Dragster's conversion in the Top Thrill 2. And in this scenario, I would say that this is a new credit, because it's an entirely different ride experience than the original. We will occasionally see coasters receive a different kind of train. This is most often when a B&M stand-up coaster is converted to a floorless. This is actually a scenario I'm still unsure on myself. While the track is the exact same, the experience is going to be fairly different with a different riding position. I'd love to hear some other opinions on this scenario so I can eventually come to a conclusion myself. The last thing I'll discuss is the topic of relocated coasters. In short, while I haven't run into this scenario myself yet, I wouldn't count relocated coasters as a new credit if I had ridden it at its original park. In my eyes, it's still the same coaster and the same track as before, just moved somewhere else. A good example of this would be when Chang at the old Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom was relocated to Six Flags Great Adventure and reopened as Green Lantern. Had I ridden this in both locations, I would only count it as one credit. Now, you could argue that it's a different experience, being in a different location, which honestly makes some sense, and I'm not opposed to that train of thought. But at the end of the day, I just see it as the same coaster, and I don't really think of it as a new credit. And that about wraps it up for all the scenarios I thought of while making this video. Let me know where you agree or disagree with me in the comments below, or if there are any scenarios you think I missed. I'm very curious to hear other perspectives on this topic, as it's something I've pondered for a little while. Make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and let me know if there are any videos you'd like me to make. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.